We're going to commence our service on page 189
Here we
with the
go.
theme of Mi Ha'ish. This is a beautiful psalm, and one that is clearly worthy for us to recite. Who is the one who is eager for life? Who desires years of good fortune? Guard your tongue from evil, your lips from deceitful speech. Shun evil and do good. Seek integrity and pursue it. I want to just focus for a moment on the Hebrew. Mi ha'ish, who is the human being? Echafetz chayim, the one that delights chayim in life. Ohev, love days, le'ot, and why? To see good. Mitzur l'shoncha me'ah. So what does it mean to love days to see good? What is the goodness? That one should guard one's tongue from evil, and your lips from speaking mirma, murmuring, or deceitful. Sur me'ah, the psalmist urges us to turn from those paths, v'aseh tov, and do good. And most of all, bakesh shalom, to seek peace, v'chodfehu, and pursue it vigorously. The word rodef is used also with respect to one who is in hot pursuit of another to commit murder. So just as one is in hot pursuit to do that, Godfehu, instead of pursuing anger, pursuing another human being out of anger, we should emotionally pursue with the same vigor shalom, peace, wholeness. We're going to continue now on page 207. Since the Torah portion focuses much on the notion of tzedakah, giving to the poor, and the famous passage from Maimonides' Mishneh Torah, where he develops a theory about tzedakah in a chapter that's called Hilchot Matalot LeEvyonim, gifts. Listen to the gifts to the poor. So there's a whole section on that. And in that section, he posits that there are 8 different levels of charity, 8 different levels of tzedakah. And here they are. There are 8 degrees in the giving of tzedakah, each one higher than the one before. To give grudgingly, reluctantly, or with regret. You give because it's a mitzvah, but you don't really want to do it. Your heart's not in it. You resent it for any reason whatsoever. To give less than one should, but with grace. You give, but you give with a good heart. You give with acceptance that the person is in need and that it's a mitzvah. To give what one should, but only after being asked. Because if a person asks for tzedakah, they become a little bit lower in your eyes. And human dignity is so important to preserve in each and every interaction. To give before one is asked. You see someone in need and you respond. That's the next level. To give without knowing who will receive it, although the recipient knows the identity of the giver. In other words, that the person gives to a general fund, but not doesn't know who gave it. But the recipient knows the identity. And so that creates a different kind of relationship. To give without making known one's identity, so that nobody knows, neither the organization nor the recipient. To give so that neither giver nor receiver knows the identity of the other. And finally, in the highest level of tzedakah, is to help another to become self-supporting by means of a gift, a loan, or by finding employment for the one who is in need. In other words, help the individual become self-sustaining. That is the highest level of tzedakah. Our service continues now on page 220. Page 224 with the Chatzi Kaddish followed by the Baruch Hu. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah v'yalama divrach yirutei v'yamlich malachutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedechon beit Yisrael b'hagala v'zman kariv v'imru amen Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach ve'olam ulal me'almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbarich umam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yitala v'yitalal shemei dekudisha b'richu leila min kol bechata v'shirata toshbechata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Please rise for the Baruch Hu. Our service continues now on page 229, in the beginning. Together, in the beginning, even then, a new light was sown for the righteous. They promised that your light would become the catalyst, first for order and then for hope. Author of language and light, help us to use words as you have, to cast light into dark waters and draw out justice and truth. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. And we continue now with the prayer, once or twice in a lifetime, the prelude to the Shema. Page 231. Once or twice in a lifetime, a man, a woman may choose a radical leaving. Having heard Lech Lecha, go forth, God disturbs us towards our destiny by hard events and by freedom's now urgent voice, which explode and confirm who we are. We don't like leaving, but God loves becoming. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher bi'amo Yisrael bi'ahava. We continue now with the Shema on page 232 and 233, followed by You Shall Love Adonai Your God on page 234. Please rise. course, you may be seated. We continue now on page 241, the prelude to the Mi Chamocha. How is it that we number our days? Page 241, and what is my lifespan? Let us join in prayer. And what is my lifespan? I'm like a person gone out of Egypt. The Red Sea parts, I cross on dry land. 2 walls of water on my right and on my left. Pharaoh's army and his horsemen behind me. Before me the desert, perhaps the promised land too. That is my lifespan. We continue with the Mi Chamocha on page 240. Sur Yisrael, Kuma Biazrat Yisrael, Luftegen Umecha Yehuda Yisrael, Go'alenu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch Ata Adonai, Go'al Yisrael. Please rise now for the Tefillah, Adonai Tzvatai Tiftach, continuing with the Avot V'imahot on page 244, continuing with the Kedusha all the way through to page 248. in silent meditation, page 248 through page 260. You choose, of course, those prayers that are most meaningful for you, or, of course, you may pray in your own silent meditation. Page 248 through page 260. When you complete your davening, or if you wish to sit and so forth, please feel free to do so. We continue now with the Yisnachu on page 260.
Shomari, shomari, shomari.
Rabba, thank you. Beautiful rendition of Yismachu. Certainly brings back memories for me when I was growing up. Though it wasn't said last week, but it wasn't quite sung that way with the Steinway piano as an accompaniment. Rather, my Chazan was from Hungary. He escaped prior to the start of the Second World War, and he brought his. He had 4 sons, and he organized a choir and so forth, an all-male choir. But he was wonderful and would sing this rendition. That all of us who were preparing for our bar mitzvah, we had to learn. We had to learn that melody. Okay. So we're going to begin our Torah service, and this is going to be a little bit of an instructional part here. I'd like for people to get an aliyah. We're going to have to learn sort of how to. I mean, not everybody in the congregation kind of knows how to do the aliyah, except everybody's going to get very nervous about the Hebrew. Right? Some people, I shouldn't say everybody, but some people, first of all, you get up and you start with, you come up. And so we don't want to put people on the spot, but at the same time, we only have so many people, and I'd like us to do, say, five aliyot. It's a relatively short reading what I've selected for this week. So if you're uncomfortable with the Hebrew, you read it in English. I'm sure that God understands. And there is precedent for doing prayer in the vernacular. In fact, some of the prayers that are done in the more traditional synagogues, like Yikuprokan Min Shemayot, some prayers are done in Aramaic. For example, the Chatzikadosh is done in Aramaic. Why Aramaic? Because it was written probably in Babylonia during the exile. And so that was the vernacular. The Talmud is not written in Hebrew. The Talmud is written in Aramaic. Why? Because that's what they spoke when the Talmud, that was the language they spoke in the land that they lived in. And in the Shema, for example, the halacha is that you should say, there's a big debate, should you say Shema in Hebrew? Because it says, Hear, O Israel. What does the word Shema mean? Does it literally mean to hear? Or does it mean to understand? There's a big debate in the Talmud. And it's a machloket, it is a controversy. It's a fascinating passage, and one of these days we will actually walk through it, and you'll come away with some real enlightenment about how our rabbis understood controversy, and how they understood how to read Torah and have 2 disparate views at the same time, and both be considered divinely given. And that's really the key to that sugya, to that passage in the Talmud. So the Shema can also mean to understand in the language that you understand. And the halacha sides with the language that you understand. So when you recite the Shema, if you don't understand the words in the Hebrew, you can recite it in the English. You can recite it in the language that you know. So I'm going to take that principle. I don't know what the halacha is relative to the blessings over the Torah. It could be different, because when we read from the Torah, we're reading Lashon Kodesh, we're reading sacred language that is holy, because that's the language of the Torah, and we're reciting the blessing. But for our purposes here today, if you are nervous when I call you to come up to recite the blessing over the Torah, for our purposes today, and so we get used to it on Shabbat morning, because we're going to take the Torah out every Shabbat service, because that's what you do. The Torah, by the way, should not sit in the ark. The Torah sits in the ark in many congregations, not so much in conservative form. In Orthodox, but it sits in the ark a great deal in Reformed congregations. We're going to change some of that. Some of that is selfishness on my part, because I grew up as a Balkori, and some of it is my understanding that the Torah shouldn't, quote, sit in the ark to be an object of worship. Sure, of course, we should treat the Torah holy, but it's an object to be used, to be studied, to be read from, and so forth. So we're going to take the Torah out, and when I call you to come up, don't be nervous. You can read it in English. The blessings are like in English. If you're more comfortable in the Hebrew, by all means, read it in Hebrew, whatever you're most comfortable with. Because for Busha, we don't want to embarrass anyone. We don't want people to feel uptight or nervous and feel embarrassed. And I know when you come up here, it feels that way. You want to at least get a core group of people who don't feel that way. Like last night, when Howard and Nate came up to do the Kiddush, I didn't have anybody picked out ahead of time. That's my negligence, but it's also part of me that says, well, we'll call on whoever is here, and somebody will volunteer to recite Kiddush. Howard and Nate were kind enough to do that, and they came up, and it was wonderful. It was as good as I could do, really. I mean, okay, so maybe they didn't quite have the voice, but they had the nefesh, they had the soul to do that. And that's the whole point here. The whole point of the religious service is not to, yeah, we should stand in awe, but we should also be comfortable in our relationship to that which is sacred and comfortable enough in our relationship to one another. So we're going to begin with Ki Mitzion. I'm going to ask everybody to rise. That's on page 364. name and you're called up, then you can come up as a couple, which would be, which is perfectly fine. And I'll read a section. We'll try to do, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 5. I'm going to call people up as a sort of a couple, so some people feel more confident. Nate, since Iris isn't here, I'll give you a separate Aliyah. And if you want a Mishkan Tefillah, I'll have a Mishkan Tefillah up here that will have both the English and the Hebrew and the transliteration. Use whichever one you are comfortable with. English is perfectly acceptable, as I've indicated. Okay. The Torah portion itself, does everybody have a plow chumash? Okay, they're in the back, so you can follow. Yes, it'd be great if, yeah. I like the informality of this. This is very, very good. I don't need to do that. Yeah. Thank you. If you want to see the blessings, they're on page 368. In the middle, beginning in the middle of the page is where you can find the blessings. Page 368. The portion is Re'eh, and in the plout, you can see the beginning on page 1442. It is Shavi'i, it is the last section of this week's reading. And I thought we would read this because, number one, it's about festivals and about celebration. Last night, sermon was really devoted to tzedakah, which is a major thing. Once again, page 1442, beginning with verse, gosh, the print here is so small, beginning with verse 19. Okay. And right, it's chapter 15, verse 19. That's where it begins. Unfortunately, in the plout, they don't have the corresponding English verse, but the corresponding Hebrew verse in the Arabic numerals. They just have the Hebrew lettering. So if you go to the right-hand column of the Hebrew, and the very last set of numbers, there are two numbers called Yud Tet, actually 2 lines from the bottom. My plout goes from left to right, so it's a little confusing. And so you'll turn the page and you'll see it says the holy days. Again, you turn it like you would a regular book. Some of the plouts were written in the old. Oh, do you have the Hebrew one where you turn from right to left, or are you turning left to right? You're turning right to left, right, like a regular book. Okay. So what's going to happen when you turn the next page, you're going to see something that says the holy days on it. Do you see that? If you just turn it like a regular book, you see that? Page 1442, that's what I have. Okay, so now if you turn it from right to left, right? Don't turn it like a Hebrew book, which is left to right. Turn it from right to left. You'll see something called the holy days on the next page. You see that? Yeah, please. Oh. Yeah, if you turn to page 1446 and 1447, I have in mine, it says the holy days on it. And then when you turn to the next page, you're going to be turning to follow all along. You're going to be turning from left to right, so you can follow in the Hebrew or follow in the English if you'd like. And the column on the left is the first column that's red. Okay? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Did I have that right? No, I have that wrong. Excuse me. It's the column on the right that's read first in the Hebrew. So you go to the column on the right where it says Shamor et Chodesh Aviv. That begins with verse 1. and then you just go. The Hebrew is read from right to left, so the columnization, the first column is the column on the right, and then on the left side of the is the second column. But when you turn the page, you're turning from right to left. It's a little counterintuitive, but that was the nature of Reform Judaism. That's a joke. So the reason I've selected this portion is because after a very thorough discussion about poor and the obligation to give to the poor, we have this section dealing with festivals. And so some rabbis ask the question, well, why do you have all the festivals you had mentioned right after this whole discussion about poverty and about freedom and letting the slave go free and so forth? And one answer is that rejoicing in our tradition means that we have done our obligation, our caring for other human beings who are less fortunate. That when we do that, then we can have a true celebration, a true festival. And the obligation to continue to fulfill the mitzvot is a pilgrimage, as it were, to Yerushalayim. So once again, you can follow the reading on page 1442. And I'd like to give the first aliyah to the Birkins, who are celebrating today. Isn't that right? Their 53rd anniversary. What is it? 61. 61, excuse me. I got 53rd from a previous. So the 63rd wedding anniversary today. So we'd like you to take the first aliyah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Goed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher baruch Abonu min kol ha'olamim, u'nasa lanu es toraso, Baruch Atah Adonai nosein ha'torah.
Amen. Kol abhor asher yivalei bivkorcha uvtzoncha hazachar takdish l'Adonai Elohecha lo tavod bivchor shorecha v'lo tagoz b'chor tzonecha lifnei Adonai Elohecha tochlenu shana b'shana b'makam asher yivchar Adonai ata uvitecha v'chiyeh Piseach o iver kol munra lo tizbachenu l'Adonai Elohecha b'sharecha tochlenu hatamei v'hatohor yachdav chatzvi v'cha'ayal rak et damo lo tochel ha'aretz tishbechenu kamayim.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nasa lanu Torah shemes v'chayei olam notav v'sochenu, Baruch Atah Adonai nosein ha'torah.
Amen. And I want everybody to rise and join in the Shechianu, the Mazel Tov, to the Birkins on this wonderful occasion. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. You may be seated. Maggie and Heidi, would you like to come? Ha'amdu. Margalit bat Sarah, Vinira bat Abraham Sarah, Sheni. We are now on page 1148, beginning with verse 1.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Shamor et chodesh aviv v'asita Pesach l'Adonai Elohecha ki b'chodesh aviv hotziacha Adonai Elohecha mimitzrayim laila v'zavachta Pesach l'Adonai Elohecha tzon uvakar b'makom asher yivchar Adonai L'shakein shemo sham lo tochal alav chametz shivat yamim tochal alav matzot lechem oni ki v'chipazon yatzata me'eret mitzrayim leman tizkor et yom tzeitcha me'eret mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Natan, I'm assuming is your Hebrew name? Natan? Rav Natan ben Shmuel Shlishi.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'lo yera'eh lecha se'or v'chagavu lecha shivat yamim v'lo yalin min habasar asher tizbach ba'erev bayom harishon laboker lo tuchal lizboach et hapasach b'achad sha'arecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach ki mel hamakom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha l'shakein shemo sham tizbach et hapesach ba'arev kivo hashemesh moed tzedcha mimitzrayim uvishalta v'yachalta b'makom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha bo ufanita b'boker v'yalachta leohalecha sheshet yomim tochal matzot uvayom hashvi'i atzeret l'Adonai Elohecha lo ta'aseh melacha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Nate used to tell me I learned nothing in Hebrew school, and I turned to him and I said, "You did learn something in Hebrew school." A little bit. Okay. Howard and Patricia? Once again, it's perfectly acceptable to read it in the English or the Hebrew, whatever you're. Good. Wonderful. Yamo, Yamdu, Yechila, Ben Yaakov, the Sarah back. Revi'i. Now we come to the festival of Shavuot. We did Pesach, and now we're doing Shavuot. Pretty soon we'll do Sukkot.
Baruch Adonai Havarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch
Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Toratav. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Shiva Shavuot tispor lach, mehachel charmesh bakama, tachel lispor, Shiva Shavuot, v'yasita chag Shavuot l'Adonai Elohecha, misat nidbat yadcha asher titein, kasher yivarechecha Adonai Elohecha, v'samachta lifnei Adonai Elohecha, ata uvincha uvitecha, v'yavdecha v'yamatcha, v'halevi asher b'shorecha, v'hager, v'hayotam v'amona asher b'kirbecha, v'amakom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha l'shakein shemo sham, v'zacharta ki eved hayita b'mitzrayim, v'shamarta v'yasita et achukim ha'eleh.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emes, v'chayei olam natan b'tocheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Yashikol.
So that we can ensure that everybody gets an aliyah. In person, we're going to ask Duncan and Callie to come. I'm going to ask the people who are on Zoom to unmute themselves so they can join in the blessing. It'll be a little bit of a cacophony, but that's okay, because I know that this is Duncan's first aliyah, and probably Callie's as well, and they're a little bit nervous. You can do it in English, of course in Hebrew, and also we'd like to invite Chris and Molly, since we have Duncan and Callie here, and Duncan is celebrating his first week as a Jew, yes. So we're very excited to welcome him. We also would like Christopher and Molly to come forward, and if they're comfortable. Again, you can read it in English, you can chant it, whatever you're comfortable with. So it's going to be a little bit of a cacophony, but this way everybody gets in and can come close. This is not the stand there. You need to get close and follow the reading. Is everybody unmuted? You invite them to join in the blessing, but they can hear me. All set? Okay, great. All right. So everybody together? However you want to do it in the Hebrew or like in English.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Hamavarach, Baruch Adonai Hamavarach, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'shem mikol ha'amim v'natan et Toratav. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Chag HaSukkot. תעשה לך שבעת ימים, ביספך מגונך ומעקבך, ושמחת בחגך, אתה ובנך ובתך, ועבדך ואמתך, והלוי והגר, והיתום והאלמנה אשר בשעריך, 7 ימים תחוג לאדוני אלוהיך, במקום אשר יבחר אדוני, כי יברכך Adonai Elohecha, b'chol tevuatecha, v'chol ma'aseh yadecha, v'hayita ach sameach, shalosh pa'amim b'shana yira'eh, kol zechurecha et pnei Adonai Elohecha, b'makom asher yivchar, b'chag hamatzot, ובחג השבועות ובחג הסוכות ולא יראה את פני אדוני ריקם איש כמתנת ידו כברכת אדוני אלוהיך אשר נתן לך.
Okay.
Second blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayim olam atah b'torfenu. Baruch atah Adonai notenu haTorah.
Normally we would call someone to lift the Torah, but my fear is that it's pretty heavy on one side, so we'll just wrap it here for just a moment. This is a beautiful scroll, by the way. As you can see, everybody that came up, it's beautiful. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes, we would have had maybe 7. I just didn't want to put I didn't want to put everybody in touch. Right now, we would have had 7. Yeah, and of course this is the first time, by the way, that we've really done it this way, and I'm very interested in your feedback after the service. I am prejudiced, authority on reform services. Sometimes they don't read. Usually it's just 1, maybe 3 at the very most. And sometimes it's really translated, it's usually not chanted. This is not for you. This is a very traditional way to do it. And so I'm very interested in your feedback as you come to the service, because it takes time. It's a limited time for everybody involved with. Time is always, that's the first question they always ask in the service, how much time do I have? How much time do I take? So I've been very interested. This is the first time I'm doing it, so I'm going to try to see how you all thought about it, and whether this is something much about more. If you'd like to see continue as a picture for this, and if it turns out that yes, you love this, and you love the culture as well, and you love things as well, and you print and giving it out, and you love that part of the service, then also, I didn't want to put people on the spot and call because we only have so many people here. I didn't want people to. It's it's not nerve-wracking if you know how to do it. You've done it 1,000 times, right? You've done it as many times as somebody has. I know there are some people that this is not their standard thing that they do every week. They call it a tour and so forth. So I didn't also make people feel like they don't have too many people to run about it. I kind of wanted to just sort of get you this rest of this space. But we can certainly, if your feedback is positive, you can do it in a traditional fashion.
Doesn't get much better than this.
No, it doesn't.
I said it doesn't get much better than this.
This is great. Yeah.
I'm sure, one of these days, if the tradition is true, everybody has to answer before God. And I can just see God saying, why do you have such little faith in people? You've got to check everything out with them to make sure that it's right. They love reading the Torah. Why did you do that? You
passed.
What's that?
You passed.
Okay, well, make sure that if after I'm up there, that you come up and it could be a condition, it would be a conditional. By the way, just so you know, my teacher, who was from Eastern Europe, always said to, like when you give a devout Torah, always tell a little joke at the beginning. He had a tremendous sense of humor. This was as frum as you got, and he was an Iloi in Eastern Europe. And he always counseled me, make sure you tell a joke, at the beginning of your sermon, so it can be in the Bible. Of course, he had the gravitas to do it. I mean, I don't have quite the gravitas that he has. But so this is not outside of the realm to make people feel comfortable and to make people feel a little more relaxed. So thank you so much for that great feedback. I'm just going to I'm just going to finish putting the cover on, and then we'll continue the service. Yes, yeah, I can use a little bit of help just to be careful with it. Actually, I have it. I got it. I'm all set, yeah. I'm going to put the accoutrements on later, after the service is over. It's a little heavy this way. No, actually, yeah, it's a little difficult. I will put it on. Next time we'll have you all adjust the Torah. I mean, it's not, we have several engineers here that know how to do that. I'm not worried about that. But for right now, we'll do it this way. Okay. Please rise, your hallelujah. And that is, let's see, that is Hodu on page 374. I'm going to have you continue to stand because we're going to go to the Aleinu right now. The Aleinu is on page 586.
Sure.
You may be seated. This week, we observed the yahrzeits of Raymond Frankel, Herman Patterson, Anne Hart Bergman, Lillian Malfelder, Anne Tellis-Fink Adachowski, Frederick Vogel, David Wagman, and Evelyn Feibelman. Is there anyone saying Kaddish for someone who they wish to remember at this time? Yes, Howard.
My cousin Murray Leader.
Is there anyone on Zoom? This time I'll ask the Zoom people to unmute yourselves and to say the names of anyone who they are reciting Kaddish for. In solemn testimony to that unbroken faith which links generations one to another, let those who mourn now rise and join in the recitation of the Kaddish for mourners and those observing Yartzeit, those whose tradition it is to join in its recitation, page 598. Yittadal v'yittadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chilutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechol v'yomechol v'chayei v'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv iru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitborach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'ala shemei d'kudsha b'richu ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nachemata da'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehesh lama rabba min shumaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God, who establisheth peace unto the heavens, grant peace and comfort in the hearts of all who mourn, and let us say, Amen. We're going to go back for just a moment to page 367, excuse me, page 371, to recite the Mishaberach for those in need of spiritual or physical healing. In our prayers for healing, we include Bobby Davis, Matthew McCormick, Paul Bradley, Alan Hall, Robin Mayer, Mark Siegel, Susan Bruce, and all those who are suffering from COVID. Now ask anyone in the congregation to recite those names of those in need of spiritual or physical healing. Thank you. Thank you. Patricia?
Alice Glass, Gail Carson,
Steve?
Jan Reese Weitzman.
Charmaine Mosier, Mimi Grossman, Judy Stein, Mark Schoenfeld.
Thank you. Just a few announcements. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, there is a men's club meeting. Will there also be schnapps served at the meeting? If you want, okay. That's at 9 o'clock, and then immediately following that meeting, there will be a cleaning up or really fixing up the temple for the sort of forthcoming Yamim HaNora'im that the men's club will do to make our synagogue look even more beautiful as a Mishkan Kodesh, a holy sanctuary.
It's open to the whole congregation, too, not just the men.
Yes, so anyone in the congregation can come and participate in this great mitzvah. There'll also be a tree planting in the children's section that Larry Miller has donated I don't know what kind of a plant it is. I'm not a horticulturalist, but it's out on the step, and we will plant that as well to begin our approach to the Yamim HaNora'im. Also, there'll be Torah study once again on 5:30 at 5:30. We're continuing to try to enhance the Zoom experience for those who are on Zoom. And hopefully we'll have some new updates by that time to make it even more interactive. Services again next Friday at 6:15. We really appreciate everybody doing social distancing. We weren't quite sure how many people were going to come. This is a sanctuary space where we can really do social distancing very comfortably. I wasn't sure in the chapel whether it would be as protective. All of us want to keep everyone safe, but also I think pekuach nefesh, the notion of saving life, also means protecting the things that we hold really dear if we can do so safely, and to gather as a community, to gather in person, and to take all the possible precautions that we can, including social distancing, including requiring vaccination, including when the service is over for everyone to don masks and so forth, as we wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Any other announcements that we need to make? I was going to do an interactive Adon Olam, but since we have such a wonderful celebration of the 61st anniversary, this is wedding anniversary, we'll dedicate this Adon Olam to the two of you. As I've said before, Adon Olam is a love poem. If you really read Adon Olam in the English, you'll see that it's really a statement of love, of great devotion to God, and therefore the traditional melody doesn't actually really fit the level of the emotional expression of this beautiful piyut, this beautiful poem. Which is a meditation on God and one's relationship. And perhaps the most beautiful part is B'yado afki b'ruchi. In God's hand, I deposit my spirit. Be'et ishan v'a'ira. At the time that I sleep and at the time that I stir up. Ve'im ruchi geviyati. And with my spirit, and with my breath spirit, really with the essence of my life, Adonai li, God is unto me, v'lo ira, and I will not fear. So this Adon Olam is, it's on page 625. Thank you. I was going to do a more exciting one, but since we have a beautiful love here that fills the sanctuary space for the 61st anniversary, maybe this is a little more appropriate. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra v'yet nasa v'chepso kol azay melech shemo nivra v'yacharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora hu haya vehu hover hu yeh b'ti bara. Hu echad v'yein sheni hamshilo leachbira li reishit v'li tachlit lo ha'oz v'ha'misra hu eini v'chai goali tzurchem libi etzara hu nisi umanos li v'nat kosi b'yom ekra. B'yado afki v'yeti shan v'ya'ira ואם רוחי כביאתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא. יית נפסה וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Shabbat Shalom.